Take a moment to commend the General Assembly for your hard work during the special session last November to reduce property tax rates. Thanks to your efforts, we're saving Coloradans money in the short term as we work together towards a long-term replacement to the Gallagher Amendment to keep property taxes low.
Recording in progress.
Good evening. Today is Monday, April 21st, 2025, and this is the Historic Preservation Commission, and we'll do a roll call, please.
Commissioner Buckamp.
Here.
Commissioner Wilt. Here. Commissioner Whidden.
Here.
Commissioner Berg.
Here.
Commissioner Keller.
Here.
Commissioner Anderson.
Here.
Chair Haley.
Here. Thank you. We have our agenda this evening, and just checking if we have any changes or additions. And if not, we can make a motion to approve.
I make the motion to approve.
I'll second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And any public comments that are not on our agenda today? I see none, and we don't have anyone online. All right. And then we have our first public hearing, which is going to be 1016 Main Street, which is for a demolition review, and we'll have a report from staff.
This will be my first real test of the hearing aids because she has Emily's a soft.
Good evening, Commissioners. This is Emily Klein Gibson, Planner 2 with the staff presentation. This is a demolition review application request to demolish the existing building and detached garage located at 1016 Main Street. This property is located in the middle of the block between Short Street to the north and South Street to the south. As a reminder, the purpose of demolition review applications is to prevent loss of buildings that may have historic and architectural significance and are reviewed against the 4 criteria in Section 1536-200, which includes the eligibility of the building for designation as a landmark, the relationship of the building as a potential contributing structure to a potential historic district, the reasonable condition of the building, and the reasonable projected cost of restoration or repairs. This slide provides photos of 1016 Main Street over time. The left 2 photos show historic images of the house from the early 1900s and 1950s, and the right 2 images are present-day photos. The property exhibits a Queen Anne architectural style, which is typically represented by steeply pitched roofs, large porches, and bay windows. The house was likely constructed from a Sears and Roebuck do-it-yourself home building kit, which was available from 1908 to 1948. Minimal changes have been made to the front facade of the house, and according to the historic structure assessment completed for the property in 2024, small additions on the eastern and southern side of the house were added after 1948 and in 1989, respectively. This property received probable cause approval in November 2024 and will be analyzed against the same landmark criteria. Starting with the age, this main house is estimated to be about 114 to 129 years old. As I mentioned earlier, the architectural style of the property is Queen Anne style, which includes characterizing features on the building that have remained unchanged. For social significance, the property was used as a rental home for many years by the Ashe family, and later ownership included the Petrelli family, who were of Italian descent and lived in the home. Mr. Petrelli and his son worked at a local coal mine, including the Lucas Mine and the Centennial Mine, during World War II. And as for the physical integrity, the building has had minimal exterior changes aside from the 2 minor additions and has not moved from its original location. Staff analyzed the proposal against the demolition review criteria and found that the age and architectural significance are the strongest factors to meet the landmarking criteria. And the association with local mining and Italian immigration also meet the social significance. Louisville does not currently have any historic districts, but the subject property has the potential to be a contributing structure in a potential district based on the age and integrity of the surrounding buildings. The HSA outlines the reasonable condition of the building and notes that the building structure is adequate for continued use. And finally, since preservation or restoration work is not proposed with this demolition application, a cost estimate is not readily available. Louisville has conducted several historic building surveys in the past, and the 2 most recent were completed by Paleo West in 2018 and 2023. 1016 Main Street was not listed as a priority property for local landmark designation, nor was it featured in the 100 architectural inventories surveyed. This property was registered with the National Register of Historic Places in 1986, which was around the same time 11 other properties in Louisville were registered. And 1016 Main includes one of 7 residential properties in Louisville that are listed on the National Register. With all of this, staff recommends placing a full stay of 180 days on the demolition request for 1016 Main Street. Staff believes the relatively rare Queen Anne architectural style has been largely preserved on the building, and its location on Main Street, as well as its National Register designation for architectural integrity, merit a full stay for staff and the HPC to explore all available preservation options with the property owners. And this concludes staff presentation. I'm available for any questions, and the applicant is also present and has a presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for staff?
Thank you.
Thank you. And if the applicant wants to come up and just state your name and place of residence, city of residence, or work.
Okay. Excuse me. My name's Andy Johnson. I'm with DAJ Design. I'm an Old Town Louisville resident. I'm also an Old Town Louisville business owner. This is probably going to be one of the more interesting discussions that we've had. And I'll start off being very frank. I'll be representing the project. I think that out of all of the landmark potential properties, this has received the most comments. And honestly, I'm incredibly encouraged by that. I come before you guys a lot. I come before council a lot, usually to a very empty room. But tonight, I'm very encouraged that it is not empty. And not only that, the comments that have circulated through the community with passion, some incredibly well-written, some just simply passionate, are incredibly encouraging. So it would be weird if you did not put a stay on this project. I am not going to sit up here and try to convince you otherwise, nor am I going to try to convince our community otherwise. And I do want to recognize that you are my neighbors. You are my neighbors. And by the way, it's really nice to see some old faces that I don't get to see much anymore. So anyway, thank you for coming. We did have the opportunity to study this house intensely. And I would say between DAJ, my team, and the owners, you know, we recognize that this house is a special house. back in 1984, a process got started that took 12 structures in Louisville and considered them for the National Register. These are the older documents that, show the list of those structures. The red indicating 1016 Main. Using the photos that were produced at that time for the study, you can see the 1910 photo showing that house in a very original condition. And then the 1950s, usually we find those mid-century photos a bit overgrown, a little more difficult to see the actual structure. But with all best intent of the photo, we can assume that it's largely what we see there today. Things that have changed, the road has risen. Parts of the foundation are now buried in the grade. There's definitely degradation from the siding, but overall, I think we can all agree it looks pretty good. I think it's important to understand the context by which we have these discussions. So Louisville's Historic Preservation Program, really the genesis, as I understand it, was in 2006. And then in 2008 was galvanized through an ordinance that was passed by a vote. The aspirational goals of this program was to create a new type of historic preservation. It's voluntary, it's incentivized, and it's flexible. And the flexibility comes from you. It becomes from our commission being able to judge what, from a local standpoint, is important to us, our historic built environment, and what are our values. And what this program became is the nation's first local sales tax dedicated historic preservation program. And as far as I know, it is the only one in the nation that is like this. And we've had, the pioneers were the architects that were here long before I ever came. The Eric Hartrumps, the Peter Stewarts, who were really the shepherds of this program. And then all of the commissioners that have served on this commission have really created something special. Significant milestones, obviously 2008 was the big date. 2015, the Historic Preservation Master Plan. I wonder how many of our community know about this master plan document. It is amazing, and it tells such a great history of Louisville. If you read the documentation produced for those National Register buildings, you will learn so much about Louisville that I guarantee you could hardly get in an oral conversation. Even with some of the old timers, it is really stunning. Other milestones as we were identifying our historic preservation program, particularly the grants that are awarded to preservation, to historic structure assessments. We had a couple big milestones in 2019, then again here in 2025, where we're trying to maintain the relevancy of this program to make sure that our buildings have the best shot at being preserved. And it's important to note, we're talking about historic preservation. We are not talking about saving buildings. Saving is intrinsic to the act of historic preservation. And our program does an incredibly great job at doing that. When you look at this very incomplete list, unfortunately, I could only find one from 2022. We have 58 structures listed on just this list alone. And I know for a fact that there's more because of all the ones that we have done. We have 4 more that we've worked on. Not only that, we've done 30 HSAs since 2019. We wouldn't do that without the program, without the funding and the grant opportunities that this program provides. That's special. That's really cool. And we're really proud to be a part of that. We are proud to be a part of the DNA of this program by having this kind of influence. And there are so many others potentially in this room who have also had a huge thumbprint in making all this happen. The map looks like this. I did have to fill in one property that is landmarked, but overall, the gray properties there, those are our historic buildings. Those are the ones that we have called out as being special. Now, taking a step back just a bit, you're probably wondering where this is. So because this program is a part of my practice that I never anticipated. When I moved here 25 years ago, I never anticipated being a historic preservation professional. I thought I was going to be Howard Rourke designing modern buildings. And, and here I am crossing these worlds constantly. I moved into this house. This is a photo from 1942. And it's a house that I've raised my family. It's a house that really, largely, I have unchanged, and I've loved it. I've loved every bit of it. It's a great example of the turned-down hip pre-World War II homes that were constructed all over Louisville, one of which I'm able to be working on that is a landmark structure. What's special about this home is not necessarily the structure itself, but I got to wake up in the morning, especially on Sundays, and have a conversation with my neighbor, Joe Colaci, as he would say, "Gotta have you over for spaghetti, Andy. Come on over." I never went over for spaghetti, not once, but I loved every moment of that, and I loved watching him drive literally a quarter block around the corner to go to St. Louis Church, right across the alley. One of my best memories. Everybody in my neighborhood was 95. I got to, live in Grandpa and Grandma Kasinga's home. I got to get to know all of my neighbors in the area. And those are things that are mine. Those are my stories. And having been here since '03, I get to have a little mileage with some of that and really enjoy it every time I get to come to the neighborhood and still see some of the old neighbors. But regardless of how long I've been in Louisville, I have no more right to call my neighbor's home that much more special than mine. I have no more right to have a voice in what's important to our DNA. We all do. We all have that importance. And age, mileage, duration has no bearing on that, that impact that we all get to have. So historic structures in our community, the bottom line is it's still someone's house. I love a lot of these homes in our neighborhood, but they are someone else's home. They are not my home. I get to enjoy them, and I'm grateful that they're there. And I'm grateful that we have a program that incentivizes us to preserve them, to keep them in our history. But it's important to also know that these old homes, the ones that are 60, 80, 100, 120, they're deeply flawed structures, and they are very difficult to upkeep. And the ones that have been upkept, hats off to those owners, because it is a real labor of love. And we've gone into so many homes in this neighborhood and have seen all sorts of things that would horrify most of our structural engineers. However, we've had this opportunity to be able to work on some, and it is truly a labor of love to bring them back to life. The lifespan of wood frame structures, we say 50 years. Most of these have lasted a lot longer. Most of these shouldn't be lasting any longer without the help that we are able to put into them. And then there's the topic of National Register buildings. Now, you can read this just as well as I can, and I'm not going to do that. I would like you to look at it carefully, though. there's sort of a gold standard of historic preservation and what we consider kind of the tip of the iceberg or the tip of preservation, and that's a nationally registered structure. Now, there's a level above that, but we don't have those structures in Louisville. But it seems like a really big deal, and it is. In 1984, we had 12 structures that we wanted to honor with this designation because we did not have a local program at that time. There actually are other buildings that were recognized that are not on that list, but the ones that made the National Register are on that list. Right now, there is no mandatory preservation for nationally registered buildings, and that's a really important thing. That's something I did not understand and got to know quite a bit more as I dove into the research around what do we do with this home if it is not wanting to be reused. So the National Register does not require an owner to maintain their property or preserve it in a specific way. Feels ironic a little bit for that designation. However, it is a very important distinction. Now, getting back to this list of the 12 structures, you can see again, 1016 is highlighted. The ones that are designated on the local register are those 3 that are in the different colored boxes. What that means is that we have 25% of our nationally registered buildings on our local register. And I just wonder, does that really meet our goals? Does that meet what our intent was with our local register? What opportunities have we missed by saying, this is our list. This is the list we started with. Have we gone after those properties? Have we addressed the property owners and said, hey, did you know you can do this? And here's what we offer, specifically targeting these important buildings. I'm wondering, out of this group, who knows Lackner's Tavern? Azul Fuego, otherwise known as Casa Alegre, or Pine Street Junction. How about the National Fuel Company Store, State Mercantile Building, one of our more important ones? The Tago Brothers Drugstore, State National Bank of Louisville, it's the Huckleberry. And I don't know what everybody calls this house, but the Robinson House is sort of known as the big white house on the corner of Spruce. Lovely building. And I would add 1045 Lafarge Avenue, one of our finest masonry buildings in our area. Truly, truly a work of art, not even on this list. And it's ponderous to me that the opportunities that these structures have to be on the local list don't exist. When the survey was done in 2023, or I should say completed, there was a list of additional properties that were eligible properties or designated as eligible properties for the National Register. Unfortunately, right at the time that came out, 1033 was demolished. Interestingly enough, we did the HSA on that and uncovered that the home that they had viewed was entirely not the home that was originally there and also didn't meet any of the criteria. So I'm not trying to take away their analysis of that, but 1033 was definitely not as important of a structure as we had thought. However, out of the ones that are designated on our local register, only the one at the bottom is landmarked. We are currently working on 1040 Lafarge and have plans for that to have a landmark status with a small addition and preservation efforts. But the rest of these are not designated on our local list. And I wonder, do the owners know what opportunities they have to improve their really special properties? The important thing to know is that local historic preservation programs are binding. it is important that our important structures become local landmarks. It is important that we are proactive about really promoting the program and talking to these owners directly and talking about what a special program we have. It is not mandatory. It is not Boulder. It is not Denver. It is Louisville. And that's what's really great about what we have going. Switching gears a little bit, it's a pretty well-known fact that a lot of our homes in Old Town were not built there. They were moved from the mines. They were moved from Erie. We had a house that we studied that was moved from Littleton, Lafayette, all over. And that's how they did it way back when, which is cool. You know, you have to look good when you move a house, and you have to look good when you're operating a diesel tractor like that. But these homes were shuffled, like the deck got shuffled all the time. And so back in 2021, we made an effort to move a structure from 1201 Lincoln all the way to 833 Lafarge, created a COVID Day parade, which was amazing, and ended up preserving this structure in a new location and created a very affordable housing product for the family that lived there and created some passive income with the preserved home that was right next to them. I bring this up because when it was discovered that 1016 was not going to be reused, DAJ on our own time took the effort to try to find a way for 1016 to continue to live on. And we're really happy to say that we have a letter of intent to be able to take this home, move it to another Old Town Louisville property, and let it have its new life. This will be something that we'll probably talk about in the next couple months as these plans formulate. But we are very happy that we can create another great Louisville story for this home. Ideally, preservation wants the structure to be in its original location. However, keeping that home within our urban fabric is a very close plan B in my book, and particularly for whomever is going to be the new homeowner and the lucky homeowner for that structure. I feel like this forum is weird, that I have my back to the folks that are probably going to have the most to say about this. I think that we could have a much better discussion if we're all gathered around, but this is our format. So with that, thank you. Thank you for letting me take up some oxygen in the room. I'm very happy to answer any questions, and especially if questions do come up during public forum. If you leave the public forum open, I'd be happy to come back up and talk about anything.
Thank you very much. Any questions for the applicant?
Andy, are the homeowners here today to speak about it, or are you speaking for?
I'm representing the project, but yes, the homeowners are here.
I have a couple questions. The property is listed as TWSS Main Street. Is this a development company or homeowners? What is
No,
it?
it's private owners.
It's private.
Right.
What are the intentions for that property, that home that you're calling a home that can be moved and someone would be lucky to have this home and it can be preserved? What is the end goal with buying that property about 2 years ago, it looks like, and now saying, let's demolish it?
And I want to say too, like, we're really just talking about the property. Like, we're not talking about like intent of the property, if that makes sense. I just want to make sure we don't get too carried away in the
understand.
future.
Yeah.
Okay, so just making sure.
Gotcha.
Yeah, you're good.
Skip that question. I'm still new.
Yeah, I didn't mean to, just so we, to stay on topic of like the actual hearing. So, because I think we're all curious, but we just want to stay the course of what we're supposed to be talking about, so.
The statement that the house had been looked at, the property had been looked at, and all options considered, was it the costs are exorbitant beyond what the help from Historic Preservation Commission grant money might be able to help with? That is creating the hesitancy to do anything with it, or can you elaborate on what's been other than looking for a place to move it to? Because ideally, we'd like to keep it in the same spot because it is in a potential
Historic
historic district, and it could be a beautiful anchor because it is such a perfect example of everything we want to save.
Right. You understand it's not in a historic district.
No, but it is the
Okay.
potential to become, it's stated in the staff findings that has the potential to become part of this potential historic district if that area does become a historic district.
Yeah, I don't think there's really any harm in answering the question, but I will come back to Chair Haley's comments that the relevancy of the question really isn't pertinent to the discussion, other than I think, the owners would like to have their own mark in time, so to speak. So their own home. But I'd really like to take that, that's as far as I'd like to take that.
Understood.
Because you were just asking about cost specifically, if that was a
Right.
factor. I think that was the heart of that
Yeah,
question.
the cost is that when you were saying everything was exhausted, all options were exhausted.
Are you asking me if all options were exhausted?
Well, was the cost, that was what I was asking, with the cost, because the costs were too high, so that was saying the options are done.
Well, I can honestly say that, with the ability of a stay, kind of everything stays on the table. However, the path moving forward right now, as far as we know it, is what I've shared. I'm not trying to skirt around your question, and I'm not trying to give you an ambiguous answer.
And I'm still feeling my way around what I can ask and what
Sure.
I can't ask and not offend anybody, but it's a, as you said, a contentious type of application because of it clicks every box perfectly for the structures we want to save in place. Why don't I hand it off to somebody else before I say anything else that I shouldn't be
You're
saying?
good. You're doing fine. Yes, of course.
So of all of our criteria, there is a criteria about reasonable project cost weighing into your decision. So I just wanted to make sure that that's a question
valid
related to the
question.
criteria. Most of the time, we don't have real data on the actual cost. So I just didn't want, anybody to feel like that was an inappropriate question.
Right. Cost prohibitive is totally a fair question, so, yeah.
But I'm super excited to hear that if nothing else works, that you might have a new home for it.
So can I follow up, Andy, and ask,
Yes.
have you done any design studies, or is it clearly black and white that they don't want to proceed with even exploring an option?
No, actually, Marty, the original intent was to do a preservation project with an addition to the building itself, and for a very long time, that was the intent of the project. And I think as projects sometimes go, they tend to get a little bigger than what maybe an existing structure can handle. And honestly, this is going to sound very insensitive, so I apologize. But there's a sort of, in terms of the decision-making process, and forgive me, it's kind of a none of your business sort of thing. Like, They made a decision around the value proposition of a new home versus preservation, and did it meet the goals of what they want for their property and what they want for their lifestyle. So again, I don't mean to be disrespectful in any way, but there is that aspect that comes into play.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant?
Two questions. One, how long have you been working on different plans for this one, if I might ask?
Sure. So we started the HSA process last summer, completed it in the fall, and have been in constant dialogue around design ever since, probably fall time.
Is there a location earmarked if it was to be moved?
Yes, undisclosed at this time.
Okay, fair enough.
All right. I think, anyone else? All right, thank you. And we'll open it up for public comment. One thing we were wondering too, we had public comment come in, and usually they're like posted, but do we need to show those or anything, or just because they're in the packet, so everyone can just access that
Yeah,
online?
the addendum to
Okay.
packet.
Yep.
You don't need to post that.
Okay.
It's available online.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, so first up is Jean Damiana.
And for anyone giving public comment, just state your name and city of residence, just for the public record.
Hi, I'm Jean Damiana. I live at 1024 Main Street, next to 1016. Really very upset about another house being torn down. Build up another prison. None of the prison houses that you have built in this town, since you tore all the old houses down, mash. They look like prisons, and I realize you gotta get up with the modern time, but you also promote Louisville as a quaint old town. Well, what's quaint about it anymore? I mean, most all the residents are gone, have passed, and nobody's gonna ever get that back. I mean, we had Petrillo on one side and Nick Del Pitts on the other side. When you go out the door, if they were talking across the yard, they'd start speaking Italian, so you couldn't understand them. You couldn't understand their English anyway. But this is what they did. And this is the memories, and people at their house and their, just like family. And we have lived there forever, 48 years since we were married. And it's just, I couldn't imagine tearing it down. I think it's not saying anything for the miners that built this town, the people that gave their lives and stuff to have this town. And then it's fine to build out around it and make it bigger and have all the modern houses and stuff that way. But I think really you should keep Louisville downtown area the way it should be with the old houses and your old charm. But that's my opinion. And then new neighbors, they've never lived in the house. And these people that evidently bought it that we didn't know about, we found out from the renters that they sold the house. And so we don't even know them. Don't even know the neighbors. We got to know the renters. We don't even know the neighbors. So, and it's just, I just think it's a shame that they think that they should come in and tear things down and build up these things, these big black and white houses that look like, I think they look like prisons. They may have a big window in the front or whatever, but at least try to keep it halfway historic. It's just, that's just my opinion. I just get upset every time we see some house and it's like, yeah, 2 of them. A girl come to the door the other day and said, "Do you want to come to the open house down the street?" I said, "No, it looks like a prison." I said, you just tear things down? You don't talk to the old residents and stuff. You just come in and tear it down. Build up new. So, anyway, I just hope you would leave the house. It's just a beautiful old house, inside and out.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Okay, next is Gary Damiana.
My name is Gary Damiana, and I reside at 1024 Main Street, Louisville. And there is, in a 2-block radius, there is 4 houses that were torn down and rebuilt, new ones. And the one up by the fire hall, that was just built new. And I've lived in that house that I live in now. It's right next door to 1016 that they want to tear down. I've lived in that house for over 50 years. And I did almost $250,000 worth of renovations, and I did not tear it down. And I thought that with being on the registry, you couldn't tear down the house. I don't know if they can or not, but I would say that they can't because they're on the registry. And I've myself have a lot of history in this town. My grandfather owned the house that I'm living in now, and he was a miner, and he trained the mules to go in the mines. And that's history right there. That'll never go by the wayside, hopefully. And that's, Memory Square Park, that used to be a public school before it was a park. Then they tore that down and built the pool and Memory Square Park. And that's all history. And I hope that you don't decide to knock down the history. And thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next is Jane Morgan.
Hello, my name is Jean Morgan. I live at 1131 Spruce Street over in Miners Field neighborhood on the other side of the railroad tracks. And I also am asking that that house not be demolished and a third, or I guess it would be a 5th big home put on the lot that is our old Main Street. I'm encouraged that the owners would like to move the house instead of demolish it. But I would really like to see some kind of stipulation or historic district where our Main Street looks like Main Street. If you want to build a 2-story home, go out into the neighborhoods where they have 2-story homes. Please don't ruin our Main Street. They're very unique. Let's see. I would like you to know that my house since, well, I've lived here since 72 over on the other side of the tracks. And I do live in a miner's home over there that has been landmarked here locally. I couldn't get it registered nationally because I covered it with, it just had a wood siding and I couldn't get it covered, I couldn't get it nationally landmarked. So I really believe in keeping our old town, old town. I am pleased if it can be moved. I would encourage the owner not to build another two-story home on that lot to kind of ruin the architecture of Main Street. Let me think what else I wanted to tell you. I think the only other thing that I would like to mention is that over at my house, my landmarked home, Joe Restis was a miner in town. I have what I've been told is the best native garden in Louisville, and I'm on a garden tour this Sunday, and I have a very unique plant, a fernleaf peony, that I've only seen one other time at the Botanic Gardens, and I'd like to invite people to come over and see my garden. So I'd invite you to do that. I also encourage you and the owner to put a stay on this and to move it to another location, not demolish it, and to not build a two-story home on that lot. Thank you.
Next is Tom Rafferty.
Good evening. Tom Rafferty, Old Town, Rex Street, Louisville. Dear Mr. and Mrs. Wiegand, Andy Johnson, and Commissioners, thank you for letting us share our opinion on this matter. I do believe property owners have a right to decide what they should do with their own property. I know you know all that which I am about to opine on. I am not smarter than you, and I do understand people have hopes and dreams that they should be able to realize. Hurdles can be vexing. Please, after you consider your own priorities, will you please fully consider how your place affects the fabric of this historic neighborhood and thereby the people and the whole town? My fifth grade son and I once stayed over spring break in historic Williamsburg, Virginia. They said the little second floor tavern apartment where we stayed was once rented by Thomas Jefferson. We were enthralled. That was back in the 1700s, 300 years ago, and the place is still available for lodging. Such is a living history, a perpetual contribution to the charm and culture of that old town. This historic and charming 1016 Main Street property is the same, with all of its history and prudent preservation in its place, and not moved somewhere else like a Monopoly game. The history in the report is very interesting. The architectural and structural assessments are evidence of homeowners who have prudently cared for modern updates and maintenance over its lifetime. The report indicates there is 2,150 square feet above grade with an additional 1,225 square feet available with historic certification. If you add a full basement north to south property lines all the way back to the alley, you could probably add 4,000 square feet to the existing 1,000 square foot basement. This would total up to approximately 8,375 square feet to modernize for your current and future needs. Design affects us psychologically. It can positively or negatively influence our emotions, our moods, and even our behavior. This property has many exemplary attributes. It commands a calm and stable presence on Main Street, not to mention its beauty and physical contribution to the streetscape and the historic neighboring properties. In closing, thank you for please thinking about the opportunity that you have to give back to your community. You can sensitively adapt your property and continue a trend of respecting the streetscape and our old town heritage by preservation that can last hundreds that can last hundreds of years to pass down to our children. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Peter Stewart is next.
Good evening, Peter Stewart, 1132 Jefferson Avenue. So I live 3 blocks away from this property. I'm a local architect, and part of my practice is historic preservation. And I was a former commissioner. Anyway, this is, Andy's right, this is kind of a threshold moment for the town, I think, because nobody's ever come before the commission to ask to demolish or move a National Register property. And so I think it does deserve a lot more discussion from here on out about how we target the properties that we care about and what we're going to do to preserve those. One correction about the preservation program, it started with the city charter, and it was the tax that was incentive that was supposed to enhance the program of the historic preservation program. It's really super interesting to go back and look at the methodology that the surveyors used in the in 1985 when they identified these buildings, these properties. And since my time is short, I'll try to jump through it. But it was narrowed to the 12, and the 12 they decided to only use a period from Louisville's early period from 1878 to 1920, so there's a whole lot of buildings that weren't considered in those designations. And I want to talk about integrity because, the National Registers are the gold standard. They have the highest integrity, and that's why they made the list. And just to kind of go through the integrity real quick: location, setting, design, materials, workmanship, association, and feeling. Feeling's a really interesting one that I think we should all ponder. Feeling is the property's ability to convey its historic character. In other words, it's a sense of place rooted in our local community and identity. So then when you move a building, you lose that. And you also lose more than half of the 7 aspects of integrity that are, location, setting, material, feeling. So I won't go on. I could talk forever about these things. So I guess in conclusion, I think there needs to be more discussion about our program as a whole. And then I would encourage the 180-day stay just to explore other options and opportunities that may arise. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Gary Dunlap is next.
Hi, I'm Gary Dunlap. I live at 741 Lincoln Avenue. I'm the owner of a historically preserved house, and it was recently landmarked. In reading the structural assessment for this house on Main Street, GFE Structural Engineering was brought in, and their conclusion was, they said, in our professional opinion, the building structure is adequate for its continued safe use. It is performed adequately to this point. As one of the prior speakers pointed out, this is a really deep lot. It's 150 feet. It's a lot to work with. I would encourage using imagination to look at ways to build the property you want, but to save the historic part of the house. My own house had a lot more structural challenges than this one did, for sure. And it's easy to say, well, let's put in a 21st century concrete foundation, and then we won't have anything to worry about forever. Well, that's great, that's ideal, but there are a lot of other ways that things can be made to work by a structural engineer, and I would encourage that to be done in this case. I appreciate what Andy's done in the past to create some miracles in preservation around the town. And it looks like we need a miracle. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that all of them?
Do you want to ask if there's anyone online?
Oh, is there anyone online that would like to make a public comment? Are there people online? Do they have their hands raised?
There's nobody. There's 14
Oh.
people
Okay, that's fine. I don't know if I can see them, so that's why I forgot. But yeah, if anyone online wants to make a public comment, you can raise your hand. I don't remember the other way to do it, but. Okay. Thank you. And again, there were also public comments that were attached in the addendum for tonight's meeting as well in the agenda, so. All right, so we will bring it back for discussion with the commission. I think I do just want to say thank you to the public for the outpouring of your care. And regardless of what happens, I just hope that you keep this momentum for other properties. Help us identify some of these properties that that we need to landmark, talk to neighbors, landmark your homes. So just thank you for being here tonight, because that means a lot to our community and Louisville as a whole. So I just want to thank you before we keep going. So.
I'll start. I'm a local architect as well and fully appreciate everyone's comments. Completely understand the property owner's side and their wish to create their own home. At the same time, being pretty passionate about preservation, I see the other side as well, and that's why I'm up here with my fellow boardmen. I actually met with the property owners last fall, talked to them about the project, had the opportunity to visit the site, go in the house, look at things, and it's in remarkable shape considering its age. I mean, it's very well preserved. Every owner that's had it has done a great job with it. I just hate being up here discussing it, to be honest. As a very last resort, I appreciate the idea of moving it, but as a last resort, I would really like to see further design studies, just to see what can be done. As mentioned, it is a deep lot. The square footage that was mentioned, I believe, includes the detached structures as well. But I think I can confidently say that everyone up here would agree that it would fall under extraordinary circumstances, and it would have the ability to be approved for significant grant funding. We've approved it for other projects that were less substantial, I guess. We've raised homes, put new foundations under them. I just think we need to do everything we can to try and preserve this house.
Thank you. So I also, once again, thank everybody who wrote in and who attended tonight. I think one of the big takeaways is, public knowledge that the homes here that are on the registry aren't always immune to demolition, and continuing to work with those homeowners and do outreach. In the meantime, this house is here in front of us, and it is encouraging to hear that there is potential for moving the house, but until something is signed and sealed, that's not really what we're considering tonight. What we're considering is a full demolition of this historic home. One of the arguments that I'm most sensitive to is the sense of place. This is in probably one of the most important locations it could be in Louisville, across from the History Museum, that corner, which is a north entry into town to the historic Main Street, which is predominantly one-level homes. I think it's, part of our community for people, absolutely, who live downtown and live close by and are neighbors, and people who live in Louisville but far from there, but go downtown because of that sense of place, and for people who visit and our economic vitality. So for now, I would, like to see more options explored. Again, Andy has done amazing work with our program in the past, and it sounds like it has a lot of thoughts gone into it, but there's often more angles that can be explored for preservation with the means that we have at our disposal. So I'd like to see it considered a bit more.
Yeah, I would say I agree with what you've just expressed. The sense of place is significant. And also, I think it warrants as many creative solutions as possible and more time to consider those. So.
Yeah, I think the toughest thing for this one, one of the tough things for this one anyways, is just the location and the proximity to downtown, being on the main drag, and the fabric gets a little tighter and woven a little tighter in that area for sure in people's minds. And this is definitely one of them that looks like it's in pretty good shape for the age and everything. I can respect some wooden structures can last 50 years. I think that there's many, many that live much longer than that. It's just unfortunate to see this come in front of us, really. Especially just having something as far as a nationally recognized structure on the registry. Having that plaque on the front of the building from the time it was purchased or anything else doesn't make it any easier. I would encourage those that are involved to look at other options going forward. A lot of times you can have constraints can provide some really beautiful items and structures, and the process with which you have to go through, it can be a little harder, but it's still the process, and at the end of the day can result in something quite unique, and it can be a win-win on both ends.
So I think it's pretty clear that this property meets all of our criteria. It meets the age, the social significance. It has great architectural integrity. It hasn't been changed much at all. And then also the context of being on Main Street in a prominent location, all those things. So, I would be in full favor of a 180-day stay. I think the community always has a chance of changing minds. We've seen that happen with other properties. And so I think just that's what the 180-day stay is for that time of creativity and teamwork and hope of maybe something else being figured out. So that would be my recommendation, is that we do the full 180-day stay.
And just so the public understands, that is the most that we can do. I worked on a project in Boulder where they actually landmarked the property against the property owner's wishes, which I don't believe in as well. But 180-day stay is the most that we're allowed to do here. And I would agree with what you said. I would support the 180-day stay.
And I think we would all agree that we don't want the national level landmarking our homes and then us not having control over that. So I think, and maybe not everyone would agree with that, but I think that's the freedom of having your home on the national registry and still being able to potentially tear it down at some point, as it's your property and at the national level, they're not controlling that. So I think when we look at all the perspective, it's easy to understand, but when it comes down to a specific home that we all care about or know intricately, like, it's hard to take that emotion out of it. So that's just that difference in a national landmark or national registry versus a local. The local has the most power. And so that's why when we locally landmark our homes, it's binding and we can prevent demolition in the future on those homes. So. Do we need any more discussion, or does someone make a motion?
I'll make a motion to place a 180-day stay on 1016 Main Street.
I'll second.
We'll do a roll call, please.
Commissioner Beaucamp.
Yes.
Commissioner Wilt.
Yes.
Commissioner Whitten.
Yes.
Commissioner Berg.
Yes.
Commissioner Keller.
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson.
Yes.
Chair Haley.
Yes. So we have 180 days for the continued conversation and kind of reworking, and we'll hear soon probably what the applicant has in store. So again, thank you so much for spending your time with us tonight, and definitely come to any of our meetings. Like, we would love to have you all the time. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Hey,
And our-
Linda, the stay is based on when the application was first
Right, when
submitted.
it actually is submitted.
So we're probably a month and a half in already, is that right?
I would assume that's right about where it's going to be.
Date on there, on
The exact date for the stays is in the staff report, 180 days from the application.
Right,
Sometime in
submission.
September, I believe.
September something. I think 16th or something.
All right, and then our next item is 1117 Lincoln Avenue, and this is another demolition review. And we'll have a presentation from staff.
Okay. Good evening, Commissioners. Emily Klein Gibson, Planner 2, with the staff presentation. This is a demolition review application request for the property at 1117 Lincoln Avenue. This property is located on the western side of Lincoln between Caledonia Street to the north and Short Street to the south. This slide provides both historic and present-day photos of 1117 Lincoln Avenue. As you can see, minor changes have been made to the historic part of the house, aside from the porch roof, but a garage and two-story addition alter the massing of the home. The architectural style is vernacular and features a mix of gabled and hipped roof structures. The garage was constructed in 1980, which is believed to be around the time that the rear addition was also constructed. To analyze this building against our landmark criteria, the age of this building is about 75 years old, and social significance includes World War II history and local community club involvement. Physical integrity of the historic portion of the home has been maintained. However, staff could not identify an architectural style of significance for the building, and the garage and two-story addition alter that architectural integrity. Staff analyzed the proposal against all demolition review criteria and found that the age and social significance of the property does not constitute a strong enough cause for landmark eligibility. The subject property is also not located in a geographically significant area that could make it a contributing structure in a historic district, since many of the buildings surrounding 1117 Lincoln were either constructed in a different time period or are new build homes. No documentation is readily available regarding the condition of the building. However, the applicant has provided some photos in attachment 5. And since restoration work is not planned for this property, a cost estimate for repairs is not readily available. And as I mentioned, attachment 5 of the staff report has some photos provided by the applicant. These are just a few examples of some foundational cracks in the basement floor and second-story ceiling. The subject property was not featured in any capacity in the 2018 Paleo West Stories and Places Residential Historic Context Report, nor was it featured as one of the 100 Architectural Inventories of Louisville report that was completed by Paleo West in 2023. So with all of this, staff recommends release of the demolition review request with no stay placed. Staff believes releasing the demolition request is appropriate because although the architectural integrity of the historic portion of the structure remains intact, there is no known significant architectural style for the building, and that 1980s additions of the garage and two-story in the rear significantly alter the massing of the building. The applicant has also been informed about preservation options and is proposing to pursue a different plan that does not include restoration, rehabilitation, or preservation. In addition, staff does not find that the social significance alone merit a stay of demolition when weighed against all of these other criteria. And this concludes staff presentation. I'm available for any questions. And the applicant is also present and available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments or questions for staff? Thanks. And if the applicant would like to talk to us, just state your name and city of residence for the record.
My name's Jeff Rakes, and I'm a resident of Louisville, and also a commercial building in Old Town Louisville owner. We have some roots in Louisville. My dad was a high school football coach when it was the high school Pirates in 1963, and they lived here for over 30 years until their recent passing. So we have a keen interest in Louisville and making a difference in Louisville. I've been doing this since 2008, and the reason I got it started in doing real estate investing is to truly make a difference in real estate and investing. My criteria when I look at investing is something that you can do to help people out of a difficult situation, make a difference, and to also improve a neighborhood. And when I was called about this house before it hit the market, I looked at it, walked it, and it really hit that criteria, especially with where it was located in Louisville. So we have a keen interest in trying to do something unique with it to improve the neighborhood. You're in a difficult spot. I totally respect what you do, so thank you. Do you have any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. Any public comments on this property? And any public comments online? All right, we'll bring it back for oh, sure, public comment.
Why not? So, Andy Johnson, DAJ Design. I have spoken about this property with Mr. Rakes. I know it very well. It's right on my street, just up the street from me. I recently went through a very similar process in Boulder for a structure a little bit older, similar issues, a little bit different construction type. However, the masonry construction from the foundation, given its depth, given the condition, this is one of those cases where this is not going to be a fix-it situation. This is going to be a stabilize-it situation. The problem with that is that you stabilize one area and it goes to another. You end up chasing these problems all over this house, given the fact that our soils are as cruddy as they are, and in particular for this little strip of Louisville that I've experienced, the soils are pretty temperamental. And so this masonry foundation is going to continue to have issues. And it'll get worse likely, even though one section will get better. So when you look at the age of the home being at the 1950, we're in that bubble of period of significance. I understand that we don't have a lot of post-World War II homes that are registered, but within the fabric of this street, this one is definitely a standout. Not that we don't have a lot of really great standouts in Louisville, this just isn't one of them. It has had a lot of additions to it. It's had a lot of modifications, even though that front view looks kind of similar. It's got the garage, it's got the porch, it's got the whole big thing in the back. There's so much about this that just honestly screams do-over, unfortunately. So wish it were a great home, wish it was another one that we could work with, but it's a tricky one. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll bring it back for discussion.
I can think of another home we can work with. I would agree with what Andy just said. Just from the photos, I don't know if y'all had a chance to read the letter that was submitted by the son of the previous owner. That had a lot to say, as well as about the condition of the home as well. So I don't think it merits preservation personally.
I think this is an interesting house, a tricky one too, because we don't have a lot of those 1950s homes, and we like to represent all the different eras that contributed to Louisville's growth. The addition, the garage, and then the portion behind the garage, if those were to be demoed, the house itself looks relatively the same to the original. So it could be potential for a preservation project there. But it for sure sounds like there's structural issues, other issues, and the applicants are familiar with the program and not interested in that at this time. So I respect that. So it's kind of thank you for being here and speaking to that.
Yeah, I look at this one and it's interesting from the time frame that it came from. To be honest, you can identify pretty much the original house pretty well, and the biggest difference I would say is the awning salesman that came through got him. Beyond that, it's not as ornate or inherently I guess beautiful as some of the other ones we've seen come through. The structure itself, I can respect a little bit just for the time frame that's from. I can say the additions are quite overwhelming on this one. As far as what they've done since then, I think the age of this one, some of the write-up as far as the condition of the house, some of the images you've seen, and I would say, again, on this one, the proximity weighs, I don't know, I just have a tough time on some of these ones that are not as ornate or are more plain Jane, and I don't think they're as easy of a decision. With that being said, I'm kind of in between on where I sit with this one. This is a tricky one for me.
I would say my inclination is the same as yours, that the information provided by the son of the owner and neighbors and the documentation of the difficulties with the physical integrity of the home make a pretty compelling case.
I think it's the daughter. Is it Wendy Stone is the daughter?
We had, I think, the daughter, and I think the addendum had the son right in, so we have both, yeah.
Okay. But that's even more support.
If there's no other comments,
I know I'm
Hey.
thinking.
Still thinking?
Yeah. Well, I was giving people time too, but do you want to say anything? Yeah.
Not really, no.
I mean, I think the 50s are we've identified some areas that we would potentially like to landmark at some point or talk about or something. I don't think this house is one of those. I think it's I think I think if the daughter and son were wanting to landmark, I would definitely like, yeah, that's great. But I think on the flip side, I don't know that it's in the neighborhood context, the social significance, the architectural. I think it's one that doesn't, I don't feel the need to put a stay on or make them wait any longer if they've already kind of made their decision. So this is a different kind of property for me, so. Yeah, so I'd be in favor of releasing it. I think it will change obviously the landscape of that street and that as we just lose more of those houses. But, it sounds like it's not in good condition and the family has made mention of that. So, and that's not necessarily a reason we could definitely do stuff for it. But I just think this is probably not a case for landmarking or a stay for this one.
I could agree as far as, probably not having as many layers and then having other arguments and documentation of other elements that just aren't working out for it, probably being the way to lean there. But, again, with saying that, usually you see the original structure's been chopped up some way, shape, or form. This one really hadn't been,
right.
Besides just
added on
not having the upkeep throughout the years is what it sounds like, versus the one we saw previously tonight that had a lot of upkeep done with it. So I could agree with that.
Sounds like we fairly agree with maybe a half and half. So if someone wants to make a motion.
I'll go ahead and make a motion to release the demolition for 1117 Lincoln Avenue.
I'll second.
And we'll do a roll call, please.
Commissioner Beaucamp.
Yes.
Commissioner Wilt.
Yes.
Commissioner Whidden.
Yes.
Commissioner Berg.
Yes.
Commissioner Keller.
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson.
Yes.
Chair Haley.
Yes. All right.
And just finally to the applicant, just please know that it sounds like you are familiar with the program and live in Louisville, have family ties to Louisville, the architect. If you wanted to revisit what could be possible for preservation towards the existing structure, again, there are funds that could help with shoring things up and restoring that. And then still, I think we didn't talk about the size of the lot, but it looks like a pretty decently sized lot and other things could potentially happen there that could be economically viable too. So feel free to still work with the program if you're interested.
That's a good point. Thanks. All right, that was the end of our public hearings. Our next item is a discussion and direction for our 2025 work plan with staff.
Okay, good evening. I'll be presenting tonight's discussion direction. So for tonight's work plan discussion direction, we have two main goals, which are to review the work plan draft for 2025 and create subcommittees for each plan item, and of course adopt the plan as well. As a refresher, the work plan discussion direction from the March HPC meeting focused on selecting 1 to 3 main items to add to the 2025 work plan and considered quality over quantity, as well as projected staff workloads and abilities to contribute to major projects this year. The commission decided that the 2025 would be the year of public outreach, so the 2025 draft work plan includes multiple forms of outreach subcommittees to focus on. And it's also still staff's intention to initiate an update to our Historic Preservation Fund grant program this year, which can tie into some of the public outreach whenever we get that going. So with that, I'm going to just open the link. And so I was planning on just opening the link to online. Just give me 1 second. So on the screen here is the draft work plan. The top, we have just a standard annual item. There's really one item this year. It's the landmark plaque ceremony that'll be held next month, May 14th. We would just need one HPC volunteer to help with the setup, mainly in May, and just make sure that event goes smoothly. Next would be the priority. So this next block here is our priority work plan items. Again, there's really only one main item for this, and that's our grant program update. That will be staff-led, will be brought to the full commission for review periodically throughout the year. And we're thinking closer towards mid-end of this year for that. The rest of the items on this work plan are our commissioner-initiated items. This is where the subcommittees can be selected. And there's really just one main item, which is public outreach, and then as well as 4 subcategories of public outreach to consider creating subcommittees for, as well as suggested timelines for each of these. Each public outreach item can be modified, changed, or more outreach items can be added if you feel something's missing. And that's the end of the staff presentation.
That's great, thank you.
Did we find somebody to make plaques finally?
Oh, that's a good question.
We did, yes,
Okay.
and they should be here by the plaque ceremony.
Nice.
Great.
Are they gonna redo the one also?
Yes, that one is also en route.
That's good.
Did we have one upside down or something?
Whose was that? Was it Gary's? Yeah, it was like misspelled or
Okay.
something. I can't remember.
All right.
Yeah. So,
Gotcha.
yeah. All right. So, does anyone feel strongly about taking on one of these?
How many landmark projects do we have?
Over 50.
I'm
No,
for the ceremony.
For the
this
ceremony.
year.
Yeah, ambitious.
It's a long walk.
Long walk.
There's
I'm
three
sorry.
three landmark properties for the
Okay.
ceremony.
Yeah, that's, I guess that we can start there. Marty has done the prep before.
Yeah, I've done the past 2, and
To do
I'd be
it.
happy to do it again, although I've got some,
Well, I'd be happy to do your backup if you want to do it, and then if for some reason something comes up.
well, I was just going to say, that there is something, my
Okay.
son's getting
Okay.
married, so.
Okay, that's a good excuse. Yeah, great. So,
No worries there.
Yeah.
I'll help set up, so I'll do that. All right, so that's the landmarking ceremony. And then,
I'll be more than happy to pass along the notes and
yeah. no,
some of
that's
that
great.
stuff that we,
Yeah, that's good. And then Sloan was saying that the historic commission.
Museum Advisory Board.
That's
the
right, they
historic-
forgot.
yeah.
They changed the name, which is much more fitting. Like, it makes more sense. But do you want to speak to that
Yeah,
as far as?
so I serve as liaison to the Historical Museum Advisory Board, so I go to their meetings on our behalf and then just exchange information back and forth. And the biggest thing that came up at their last meeting was a lot of curiosity about our landmark ceremony. And it seemed like there might be some interest in some of the members of that board attending and
Okay.
sort of understanding more about what we do.
Okay. So just making sure they're in the loop.
Yeah, and I was able to share with them the date and the properties that were being landmarked this time.
All
So,
50 of them?
Yeah, all 50.
Okay, so we'll make sure we send some kind of communication to them. The History Advisory Board?
The Historical Museum Advisory Board. You can just send information to Gigi for dissemination.
Okay, that's good.
Acronym making over there, are we?
All right.
I was to say, looking through the 4 other things there for public outreach, I think is great. I think these are great goals for us this year. I would be interested maybe in identifying the in-person events for the historic preservation to set up, our commission here to set up a booth. I attended a couple times, something at the Historical Museum, and I can't remember what it was. I believe it was in May. Rob, maybe you know.
Friday, was it first
It was during the
Friday?
day, no.
Oh, that's right.
It wasn't a Friday, it was during the day, like on a Saturday. And often they had somebody, like the event, the Historical Museum was having an event, and we had a booth set up. People were there for the Historical Museum. So I don't think we did that last year, though, so that's something maybe I could talk to the museum about getting going.
Yeah.
But I think we haven't had a booth at the farmer's market for a while and other things. That's something I'd be interested in working on.
Yeah,
And us
I'll-
to have some booths, because I don't mind doing that.
I'll just mention too, the chamber reached out today and they're looking for city booths for Summerfest on June 7th, which is when they do dining on Main, and there's a whole bunch of things going on Main Street that weekend. So we already have one if we can find some volunteers for June 7th, where I think the city's gonna put out several booths and try to activate the front of City Hall.
Okay, and if people are okay with me doing this, Rob, I can reach out to the chamber and start working on that?
Yeah.
So that you don't have to do that?
Yeah, I think as much, there's probably as much as you all are willing to volunteer, we could probably really extend that as far as farmers markets. They're usually, sometimes they're full, but we can usually get a spot. We've got a spot in the past at the farmers markets as well.
Yeah, and we would, I think we'd pay for that, so we would just, don't we pay for that?
I think they,
Did they let
I
us-
think they just gave it to us.
Did they?
I don't think we had
I
to
don't
pay
remember.
for it last time, but it's been a
Okay.
few years since I've done it.
Yeah. And I don't know if I'm guessing this would, let's see. Yeah, I did it. The realtor or some kind of neighborhood outreach. I don't know if we want to, that seems like a lot to lump into that in-person committee.
To the, in-person events, you mean? Yeah.
But that's another thing that keeps coming up as far as like having some kind of educational, like organized, more specific seminar type thing.
Yeah. I think that might go more with the second to last of, if we were to get an updated brochure and flyer.
And kind of go from
highlighting the
there.
program, then certainly we can have it at booth, certainly it's online. But there are people, as evidenced tonight, people with homes on the historic registry, realtors, again, we've seen, I think houses being sold and people being told like, you can do what you want with this house, and that's maybe not necessarily the case, which causes some frustration for homeowners. So I think, yeah, there would be some good targeted outreach.
So we would lump the educational piece with the brochure, do you think?
Maybe use the brochure as a launching point.
Right, because it would take a bit to get the brochure, and that would give us time to kind of plan it and stuff.
Just so you know, there's the Boulder Association of Realtors. I know right after we had updated our grants last time, we made a presentation. They have periodic educational events, and we were able to go do that. So I think helping with outreach, we can staff that, or if somebody from the commission really wanted to make a presentation, you certainly could.
Yeah, it's not, I think the main thing is just it's being done. So, yeah.
Can I ask a question? The bold, does that mean the staff is leading, and the not bold means the staff is not leading? Okay, just wanted to make sure. I'd be happy to work on the brochure, if that makes sense, and then we can circle back around how that gets leveraged for outreach.
Obviously, you know which one I'll volunteer for. The first one, the map and mapping out structures. I think tonight emphasizes the need for getting something going as far as what our priorities and maybe how they can tie back into some of our other reports that we have too. So I've already done a couple block mapping exercise I provided Amelia before, but it's just, again, when she left, I think things derailed and disappeared.
And I just want to provide, just a quick update on the online map as well. I think as of a couple of days ago, it's no longer functioning. You click on the link and it's broken.
Sad. That's so fast.
Glad you checked that.
That's, we
Good to
could,
know.
we could suggest a timeline to the work plan for that, if the commissioners want.
And I guess too, like like the little blurbs and everything, those are all, like, obviously they were in that platform, so those are gone, but they're not saved anywhere in the, like, Louisville archive.
Staff has copies of them, but they're
Okay.
not publicly published right now.
That's fine, yeah.
But we do
I
have
just
that.
know, staff had worked with like the museum and like kind of editing them down to that. So it'd be nice not to have to recreate them, but so if they're somewhere, that's awesome. That's all I was checking. Okay. And then, so you'll do the walking, or the map. That's awesome.
Yeah, the updating of the online map.
Yeah.
I'm just kind of wondering if we could add a little bit of layering to it as well. So,
Yeah, and it should be, I mean, I'm sure there's a lot better ways we can do it now than when we first did it, so, yeah. And then the walking tour,
my software was
That seems like it kinda
4
goes
different
with the
colors of
mapping.
Sharpie.
Mapping.
And walking.
I feel like the
by
walking
foot,
tour
a couple
kind of
blocks
also
and starting
makes
to do
sense
it,
to
so.
collaborate with the museum, maybe,
It's
because
gotta
I know
start
they,
with
don't they have some walking tours already?
So-
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if, I think like the online map will be all, in my mind, all encompassing, sort of all
gonna
the
be a
landmark
big project,
properties
yeah.
and things like that. Whereas a walking tour might just hit some hotspots. You probably do like a
Right.
different one every year even, you know,
Right.
like with commercial,
Right, right,
agricultural,
right. Or seasonal
residential,
or
and just kind of like have,
Yeah.
do a
Multiple
different
we can
one.
pull out.
But you would, I think, want to work with the museum and get the bios on those properties.
I just figured
Yeah.
it's
And we're talking like a self-guided tour, right?
a little
Not
easier
like
to see
a-
than a.
Not one led by a commissioner? Probably, I guess we can figure it out.
Yeah, might be helpful if one of us led or
I think it would
assisted.
be nice.
Yeah.
I mean, and I'm sure there's probably other people that could be recruited to
Yeah,
participate
sure.
in that. You know what I mean? That have interesting local knowledge to share.
Yeah.
It might be a community engagement opportunity. So,
It'd be fun.
Yeah.
I
So
can work on the walking tour too.
you want to do both the brochure and the walking tour? Because it's museum too, which
Yeah.
makes, you can,
There's a
because
trend.
that, you might be able to recruit.
Makes sense,
Yeah,
you know?
totally. No, that's a good connection. All right, so we have at least one person in each spot. Does anyone else want to jump in on any of those topics?
I'm willing to help out for the booths and
In person?
inversions, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That's great.
Want somebody else to lead it since I'm so new.
Yeah.
I'll help out with the booths too.
Well, I think we can only have 2 people. That's the only thing.
But those two.
But we can,
those-
they can plan it and you can take a turn in the booth.
I think we'll probably be asking everybody
Yeah, I
if they're
think we'll
interested in the
all-
booth.
We'll all work, yeah, we'll all work the booth, but they're gonna set up the booths, or not set up the booths, but like, organize.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yep.
We'll set the events. Figure it out.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Is there anything else you wanna work on? Is any the other options? Sounds interesting. That's fine.
I'll be happy to help with the brochure if you need help.
Okay. Yeah, and I can help with the walking tour if you need stuff. And then if you need to pull me into mapping at any point, you can. So, yeah. Yeah, and I think too, like, at some point, we'll all participate in some way or other in all of these, but just to get them kind of on the ground and running and everything, we'll stick with these.
Yeah, I'll be available off and on, so if there's
Okay.
something that we need done,
Yeah.
have you jump in. I'd just rather not take the lead,
Yeah.
being so green.
Yeah, no, that's great. Okay. Does that sound good with staff? Awesome. All right, and then, so updates from staff.
Any new staff? Not many updates from staff here. We have one demolition review application at 425 Grant Avenue that's being brought to a full hearing at the May meeting. And then again, just a reminder, our landmark ceremony will be May 14th, 6 o'clock. We'll start at the Louisville Historical Museum. There'll be refreshments followed by a walking tour to each of the 3 landmarked properties. And then that's not updated, but we will have a Historic Preservation Commission meeting scheduled for May. I believe it's the 3rd Monday in May, which will be May 19th. And that's all from staff.
Thank you. That's good. Any updates from commissioners?
We sort of already went over what I would have said
Yeah.
about the museum advisory board, so.
Okay. Yeah, we'll make sure, hopefully we can loop them in more. Some of our stuff.
What is the cutoff on the landmarks? My specific question is my 917 property involved in the landmarks for this year? Because it's still under construction and not completed.
So, yeah, we,
for next year.
yes, so since it was landmarked last year and you didn't attend last year's landmark ceremony because it was passed, it would be tentatively scheduled for this year, for this ceremony.
All right, it's gonna be a construction zone?
It doesn't have to be.
One
if
of
you'd
ours
like
was
to
a
wait another
construction
year.
zone last year.
Yeah.
And so it's more of the landmarking, it's not the finished result necessarily.
Good.
So, if that's okay with you. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Is that it? All right. Do you want to make a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a
Make a
motion to
motion.
adjourn.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you and good night.